The day Mandela was released, a wave of emotion swept over the entire country. But could all of the buzzing excitement, tensions and grandeur of that day have had an impact on even Madiba's own memory of the event? Well, that's one of the questions raised after it emerged that the events from Victor Verster Prison and shortly before Mandela's historic address from City Hall, the Grand Parade there, happened differently from what Madiba told us in his autobiography, A Long Walk to Freedom. Mandela originally wrote that his convoy stopped at the house of the now deceased Justice Minister Dullah Omar, but in fact, he had his first cup of tea at the house of an ANC activist, Saleem Mowzer. Now, to tell us more about this historic day, Saleem himself, who joins us live from Cape Town. Assalamu alaikum. Saleem, thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam, and good morning to all the listeners throughout our country.
Saleem, before we get into the historical context, tell us about, you were part, along with the Deputy President, Mr. Ramaphosa, part of the organizing committee on that day. Tell us about the emotions that you guys experienced. And then, did you also have the sunglasses and the black suit?
Yes, Ibn, I was part of the Mandela Reception Committee, who was tasked with welcoming back into our society and organizing his release from Victor Verster Prison. One of my first tasks was to phone the then Deputy Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Frank van der Velde, to ask permission that we use the Grand Parade so that Madiba could make his historic speech from the balcony and the steps of the Grand Parade and City Hall. And upon hearing what we wanted to use the City Hall and Grand Parade for, Frank van der Velde was on board, and we were able to organize that within 24 hours. We were then also tasked with arranging the motor vehicles, and I drove Comrade Raymond Mshlaba on the day of Madiba's release, and I was responsible for his security and well-being on the day of his release. And I think I was car number 5 or 6 on the day. And so we were dressed in our black suits and white shirts, certainly, and our sunglasses.
Saleem, it's now a light-hearted view, but there's a serious matter that sort of left a wrong sort of context in the book, Long Walk to Freedom, that's now being addressed. It's something that Dullah Omar was very passionate about, that you fix this. And this is what the first stop was, actually at your parents' house. Is that accurate? And that's where Madiba had a cup of tea?
That's correct, Ibn. When Madiba was released, and as the Deputy President indicated earlier, when we reached town, there were close to 180,000 people, and they swarmed the vehicles, and we had to get out of the crowds, and we got back onto the N2, and we ended up close to UCT. And we were conferring with the leadership, Comrade J. Naidu, Comrade Vali Musa, Comrade Winnie Mandela, and a few of the leadership was with us. And we initially discussed going to Comrade Dullah's house, and then realized, but he was on the parade waiting to receive Madiba. We then spoke about going to the Archbishop's house in Bishop's Court, but he too was waiting on the Grand Parade to receive Madiba. Comrade Jay then said, but Saleem, you live close by, can we go to your house? And I, of course, without hesitation, agreed and didn't realize the significance of it at that stage. But our primary concern was the well-being of Madiba and getting him to a safe place so that he could be taken care of, relax a bit, but also so that we could communicate with the leadership at the Grand Parade. And you must recall, at that stage, we didn't have cell phones. And so we had to get landline telephones to make contact with the Archbishop and with Comrade Dullah and others. And so we got to our house, and the only person who was there was my sister from Johannesburg. And She had flown down from Johannesburg. Her flight was delayed. She was pregnant at the time. The rest of my family had gone to the parade. And she was shocked when she opened the door, and there Madiba was standing with the ANC delegation and all of us. And it was an overwhelming experience, and Madiba was made comfortable, and we had prepared the lounge, but he went to the kitchen and he requested a cup of tea, which my sister prepared, and he pulled out the wooden chair and sat himself and made himself comfortable in the kitchen. And one could just feel this huge presence in the small kitchen of my mom's.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of person that Madiba was. And he enjoyed his cup of tea, and thereafter the leadership consulted him. They consulted with Comrade Dullah and the Archbishop and the leadership of the ANC, and it was then agreed that we will proceed back to the Grand Parade via a safe route in order for him to address the nation and the world.
Saleem, we've run out of time, unfortunately. I wish we could continue talking about this wonderful story. Thank you for joining us today. That is ANC activist, and, well, on the day that Mandela was released, he was on the organizing committee to get the former state president from Victor Verster Prison, which was in Paarl, about an hour away from Cape Town. They went past his house and gave, as you heard, well, Madiba insisted on having a cup of tea before he went to the Grand Parade. Now, earlier this